economist advisory. Hi, Andrew. Thanks so much for joining us here on ET Now. What do you make of the China data? How concerned should we be about it? It's in line with expectations. And is it a sign of things to come? Because there's also a high base effect. There's also a trade war, that is currently on with the U.S.
Let's split it up in three parts. First, this is absolute and complete nonsense to say that this is the lowest growth since 1990, because it misses out the fact that in 1990, the Chinese economy was perhaps half as big as it was now. So in other words, you start from a very small fish, and 30 years later, you end up with a whale, and you expect it that it will carry on growing at 15%. It can't, and it won't. China is the third biggest economy in the world, and it grew last year at 6.6%, which is a spectacular achievement. Okay, so the comparisons between China now and then are not only relevant, they're completely wrong, and people miss this completely out. Second point is the impact of the trade war on China. There is zero evidence, seriously, there is zero evidence that this has had any, if never mind a significant effect on China's GDP growth, for a very, very simple reason. And that is, so far it has affected only a small percentage of China's overall trade, only with the United States, but not with the rest of the world. Very important to emphasize this. This is obsession about tariffs damaging China's overall export performance. Export growth, we had some negative numbers in the course of year 18, but if you look at the statistics over a decade, regularly, every single year, there have been 2 or 3 months, and not just Chinese New Year, where growth grew negatively. Some of it has to do with stock taking, some of it has to do with cycles, some of it has to do with specific events. But there is no real proof that China slowed down because of the trade war with China. And the third point is what is this idea that is this, I'm sorry, I'm quoting you, of the shape of things to come. The Chinese economy has been slowing down purposefully. The Chinese authorities wanted it to slow down in the process of changing the growth drivers. And they have managed to do it, I think, quite well, given both the size of the economy and the task in hand. So am I concerned about it? Not in the slightest. Am I worried that this is going to have an impact on other economies? Quite likely. There are some notions that exports from South Korea to China might have slowed down, because imports in China have also slowed down. But moving from 6.8 or 6.9 to 6.6 is going to mean the end of the world as we know it. Is complete nonsense, I'm afraid. Also, China accounts for 16% of the global economy, 16%. Now, it accounts for nearly a third of growth. But that, again, it is sheer ignorance of people that mix the two things together. Yeah, because China grows so fast and the rest of the world doesn't, it accounts a great deal for the percentage number. But the Chinese economy as a mover in the world, it is quite important, but it is by no means the only thing that happens in the world. So, yeah, I'm quite cool, calm, and collected.
Okay, thanks so much for putting that in perspective for us, Andrew. So completely wrong. Like, it's like comparing apples and oranges. If I were to look at the data of 6.6%
exactly.
with what came out in 1990, that's the view coming in from Andrew Freris. But Andrew, you touched upon about the how China grew so fast, it grew so rapidly, and also the big contribution it makes to global growth. So would you say that the data that's come out today is an aberration, or would you say that, yes, we need to brace ourselves, and you touched upon this, I know, but if you could get into more details, that we need to, brace ourselves that the kind of figures we used to get from China is no longer going to be the case because that was on the back of rapid growth. Having said that, there is a stimulus package which is being executed in China, and what's going to be the impact of all of this on global growth?
Well, again, let's split it up in two parts. The Chinese economy has been slowing down for several years now. Okay, it moved from 8 to 7 to 6. Now, does that mean that from 6.6 is going to go down to 3? No, it doesn't. Okay, there is no reason why it should be, because incidentally, the Chinese economy is completely and utterly domestically driven. It is not driven by export. Let me make this quite specific. In the last 20 years, for every 1% growth in GDP, net exports contributed perhaps 10 basis points. The other 90 basis points were consumption and investment. So let's put aside this nonsense that because somehow exports or trade is going to slow down, that is going to ruin the Chinese economy. No, it will not. Now, the impact of Chinese economy on the global economy, has to be again split out.
Okay. Okay. Andrew, thank you so much for putting things in perspective and for joining us as well.